Welcome to Red Tiger Chronicles. This is Sifu Paul Mason, owner of Red Tiger Martial Arts in Cincinnati, Ohio, and this podcast is to help some of the most extraordinary martial artists that walk among us tell us their stories. Thanks for joining us today. We have the pleasure of hosting Master Chango Noaks Sr. of Ming's Martial Arts of Richmond, Indiana, and the CMO of that school as well, Christina Noaks. A little bit about Master Noaks. He lives and teaches in Richmond, Indiana, and he began training under his father, David Noaks II, at age 5 under martial arts. His father, David Noaks II, was an underwater demolition team expert in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War, and he introduced Master Noaks and his brothers to various elements of Western boxing, combative wrestling, and Chinese Kung Fu. Master Noaks has experience in jiu-jitsu, karate, judo, taekwondo, and Kung Fu. He's trained under Grandmaster Benny Ming for more than 25 years, and he is one of only 2 students to have trained in every program offered at Ming's Martial Arts. In October 98, he became a certified senior instructor, 7th level of Yip Man Kung Fu from the Wing Chun Athletic Association. In 1998, he placed first in full contact Chi Sao competition at the 2nd Pan Am Traditional Kung Fu Championships in Toronto, Canada. In 2000, he became a first-degree instructor under Moyat International. 2003, he became an instructor from Chi Sem Wing Chun. He is a 10th-generation disciple of Hong Fai Yi Wing Chun, a certified instructor in Hoki Boen Eng Chun, and he is one of the first 5 masters to be certified by the Shaolin Temple at the Shaolin Cultural Center in Los Angeles, California. In 2014, he did a training exchange with Shaolin monks in China and exposed them to Shaolin Wing Chun. In 2019, he was inducted to the Wing Chun Museum Hall of Fame. He is also a father, stepfather, and grandfather. Did I miss anything?
No, sir. I think you covered it all.
All right, cool deal. So I just want to elaborate a little bit more. How did you begin your martial arts training? I know it was under your dad, but can you tell me a little bit about your origin story?
Well, my dad, I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. And my dad, his approach to things was that he considered it or called it manhood training. So in terms of martial arts being part of that. So it's kind of how he wanted to raise his boys. Just like my given name, Chango, it's a Cuban African name, named after a god of war and thunder. But my dad wanted a masculine name, and he wanted to make sure I had a warrior's name so that I could live up to that through my life. So that was kind of like his mentality. So martial arts for us, it's just, it had always just been part of our lives, just what we've done. And of course it came from dad.
So, so thinking about your name, Chango, or sometimes I guess it's spelled Shango, named after the spirit, I guess, guiding spirit in Santeria, or some people call voodoo. I was just wondering, I know your dad, I guess, was a Muslim?
Well, he started out before he went into the Navy. He was actually a Christian.
Okay.
Got himself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Fight Marines, things like that. And then, of course, then he got involved becoming a frogman. And once he became a frogman, he started taking his life a little bit more serious. And then somehow he come to get involved with the Black Muslim movement during civil rights. Mm-hmm. And after that, of course, he couldn't formally earn his X just because of being involved with the military and that sort of thing. So then, of course, he had those views, those values growing up. And so he wanted my name to be an African name. So, but then all of those ingredients that makes Chango.
Yeah. So I was just curious, like, how has that? It sounds like your dad was a really spiritual person. I get the impression your mom is too. I feel like she's a Christian, Midwest Christian person.
Well, she did have that background, and what had happened. This is kind of formed my I guess I've been called interesting perspective on religion, because growing up, definitely, Muslim traditions, things like that in the household. However, we still had and would see and follow somewhat some of the Bible, things like that in the household, which a lot of that came from mom's background. So, you had mosque on Saturday and church on Sunday. So
busy weekend.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I was just curious, like, how did you, or how does your spiritual upbringing influence your martial arts training, or vice versa?
Well, so I'm currently a Christian, but I was brought to Christianity through learning Buddhism. That's when I decided to make the change to convert. As I'll say it, the difference between the two is kind of like a family argument, at Abraham, they're connected. So at this point, finding and seeing that martial arts is a spiritual journey, and spirit, not just talking, I'm not really looking at it as religion, but, how I form myself voice, who I am and my character. Yeah, and I see that as, put labels on it and call it what we want, but it really comes down to living the truth.
Right on. So that I was thinking about something you said. This had to be years ago, and maybe I was misinterpreting this, but I think probably the first time I met you was back when my Sifu had that school, that brick and mortar on Reading Road, and I think I heard you talking about your school and how at the time most of the people you were encountering were like real hardcore fighters, or people that really just wanted to learn how to fight and do MMA and cage fighting and stuff like that. And given how you understand the value of the martial arts and the martial arts training as a very like spiritual and life skills enhancing practice, what have you found to be the best method to convey those benefits to someone that thinks they just want to learn how to fight?
Well, I honestly feel you're not going to reach your maximum potential in the combat realm or in the competition realm, or pulling the best of yourself out without somewhat operating on a spiritual level. So I look at it when a student walks through the door, they're at a certain season, they're here for a certain reason. However, when I display, or if I teach them and I start to expose them to other elements and then seeing the connection, that season can change. Hopefully by the end of the day, if I've had them more than 2 years, I would like to have seen them experience all 5 activities of martial arts and not just be stuck in one. Because they tend to plug their self-worth into their abilities to do one or the other. And, that would just be a tragic thing if they left the martial arts to that.
Right on. So getting back to, I guess we were discussing a little bit ago about like Kung Fu movies. Really, it was Becky that kind of brought that subject up. And coincidentally, it was just something that I wanted to ask you. I know that you're a huge pop culture fan. We enjoy a lot of the same media, movies, TV shows, comics. So I was just curious, in your opinion, what 3 movies, regardless of era or genre, would you recommend that express the essence of Kung Fu the best?
Oh, man. Okay. 3. Could I get 4?
Yeah, 4. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure.
Mount Rushmore. Okay.
Yeah.
Enter the Dragon's got to be the first one out. I mean, that changed my life. But then, and going in and understanding the variety of different movies, I'd have to then look at Jackie Chan, Drunken Fist, Drunken Master. Number 3, it's got to be Fist of the Legend, Jet Li. So, man, okay. How do I choose to Master Killers and 5 Deadly Venom? It's got to be one of those 2. So
we'll do a 5. Yeah.
Okay.
So Shaolin Master Killer, 5 Deadly Venoms. So that those might be lost on the new generation. But I remember being a kid, like we had didn't have streaming. We had like the networks, the three networks, and then we had UHF, which was like anybody could open up a TV station. And on UHF TV, you had the Saturday morning Kung Fu Theater, right?
Yes.
I grew up down south, I imagine Midwest. And then when you were in California, I'm sure every community had a Kung Fu Theater.
Even before that, of course, I was used to live in Springfield, Ohio. That's where I was born. And you think the universe is crazy because every Friday they would have the Sherwood, what they call the Sherwood Twin Drive-In in Dayton, Ohio, where you go in, you pay one fee for the whole carload, and they ran Kung Fu movies all night long. Well, and here's how strange the universe is. We used to do that, load up in the car, get out there, little kids, and we used to do that as often as possible. And come to find out, Sifu Grandmaster Benny Ming was there. So we had crossed paths, or had at least been in the same area all of that time. And this, of course, when my dad was alive. That's like my dream meet. I have these two meet up at one point. Yeah. But that never happened. But that's just insane that he was there. And it happened just casual conversation after class with Sifu, talking about those old Kung Fu movies. And sure enough, he was there. Right. So,
and you talk about Enter the Dragon. So that is definitely like I have a kind of a required watch. I started a required watch list.
There you go.
That's at the top of the list. And I actually had a student last night. She asked me about the link between sparring and how that translates into life skills. And she mentioned, she enjoys the training, but she said she's not about fighting. And I immediately went to Enter the Dragon. It's like, it's not about you fighting. It's about the art. When your opponent gets hit, it hits you.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? The Kung Fu hits you. The Fist of Legend, I've heard of that. And I think I've been sleeping on that. But I think that's based on is that based on a true story?
Yuan Jia. Yeah. Yuan Jia. It's actually it's his student. That's the remake of Bruce Lee's Chinese Connection. Mm-hmm. So it's the remake of that. But it goes in a little deeper as far as the story. If you ever seen, what's it called? Jet Li's other movie, Fearless.
That's set in traditional China as well.
That's the teacher of the same, the main character of that story that both Bruce Lee did and Jet Li did. That's the actual teacher. And it is based off of, that's the Qing Wu family of Kung Fu. It is based off of the true story. But Fearless it's about their Sifu. Mm-hmm. It's the one that he's avenging. Oh, okay. So yeah, they poisoned him and yeah.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to add those to the list. I was curious. I think I saw Drunken Master a long time ago. I think I was probably in my early 20s, or maybe I was still in high school or something. What made you put that on the list?
The thing about Jackie Chan, now, of course, he has a brother that, in my opinion, Yongo is better than him, just not as pretty.
Okay.
He's lighter weight, floats and everything. Jackie Chan's a physical genius. And so that element and aspect, I appreciate that movie for far different reasons than I do for Enter the Dragon. The things, the way he uses things around him to exercise the art. He's not that hero that walks in and just beats everybody up. Right. You can relate to him because he's human, in the sense that he gets hit, it hurts. Yeah. It's like he's not licking the blood out of the wound like Bruce, and then the fight's over. So you kind of he's literally weaker than the antagonist, but still overcome. So yeah, Jackie.
Nice. Yeah, I think my first exposure that I knew of is when Rumble in the Bronx came out. And I saw that in the theater with my brother-in-law, actually, who he ended up being a 4th degree in Taekwondo.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, that kind of, we were like college age. And I mean, that one of the things that I enjoyed the most about that movie is the end credit scenes, because they did all the outtakes, right? Because he does all his own stunts, and it showed, what all went into doing those.
The thing that they don't tell you, a lot of those Southeast Asian actors, they actually do their own stunts.
Yeah.
So, and I know Jackie's become famous for it, but a lot of those old kung fu movies, all of those guys are doing those stunts. So, yeah, and then of course Jet Li doing the rope work. Mm-hmm. That is him flying up there. It's not like a stuntman that comes in. So. Yeah.
And then when you talk about the Shaolin Master Killer, I think, don't they also market that under the name the 36 Chambers of Shaolin? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Why do we sound like Wu-Tang, right?
Yeah.
You got a microphone in front of me now,
Yeah. So, that's Gordon Liu, I think. Right?
Yes.
And that shows the evolution of the student to... I guess the master killer.
Well, what gets me with that, too, and I think that's another thing where coincidence or the way the stars line up, in that movie, the big brother that he has to beat to leave the temple, that's Sifu's first Wing Chun teacher.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Li Hoi Sung.
Li Hoi Sung, okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I didn't realize that.
And the butterfly swords, that's what he's using. Of course, we use Ba Chang Do, but it's the butterfly swords.
Sir.
And everything there. So I did get to meet him as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For my first visit in China with Sifu. And so, of course, Sifu didn't tell me. We went to his restaurant, and he comes walking out of the back. And I've met a lot of celebrities in my life, and I never get starstruck. But like an idiot, okay, I looked at him and said, "Do you know who you are?" But he's gracious. He was a great man because he gave me a private lesson right there. And we moved the tables. It's his restaurant. Gave me a private lesson right there.
That's so cool. Yeah.
That made a magazine, I forget the name, Legends, I think, of Wing Chun or something, magazine, where I didn't even know that was coming out, and I didn't know the pictures were published.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely, I don't know why I didn't add that to you guys' list, but that's going to go on the list.
Fair.
And then I hear you talk about the 5 deadly venoms a lot. I know I've seen that one time. That one was kind of hard to get in my youth. Hard to find movie for some reason.
Most of those guys that are Shaw Brothers, those old style 70s kung fu movie buffs, that's like the crown jewel.
Yeah.
That's the crown jewel. Everybody wants to be the Toad, But that takes me back too when my mother and father got a divorce. My dad moved to California. He went back to Chula Vista, where the Navy and everything is. So we were left without an instructor. Mm-hmm. So we would literally go around to find a new instructor, and we would challenge him. If you can't beat me, you can't teach me. Teenagers full, egos with its own zip code, all that thing going on. And then we had literally given up as far as finding a Sifu. So that's where you see all those things in my resume. It's then to different schools, trying to find something to fill that void. Well, my brother come home. I was literally training in the backyard. And he says, I met one of the 5 deadly venoms. Get out of here. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Yet another instructor. So I go up to meet this instructor that my brother was talking about. And in big letters, it says, Kim's Karate. And then in very little letters, it says, Ming's Kung Fu. So we walk in here. Now, Sifu didn't see us, but he's doing broadsword for him. Now, that's been my specialty since I was a little kid, broadsword. Mm-hmm. Literally, my first broadsword, we had to order it out back of a magazine. Wait, this is back in, this is not Amazon days.
Yeah.
So we had to wait the 5 weeks for it to come. It came. So I've been doing broadsword that long. Sifu's doing things right in that moment that I used to lie and say I could do. Right? Broadsword. Because you got to think, that was time when Sifu just got back from Hong Kong. And so his wushu is his Shaolin training was just off the scale. And, young Sifu. And my brother looks over and says, "You going to spar him?" Nah, I'll pass.
All right. So you were a dojo stormer, basically.
Fortunately, I'm not proud of it. Not my finest moments. But, you got teenage kids. And I mean, we would do anything to try to, because some of those guys, they didn't want to mix it up, but we, try to get them to do it to see, if they're qualified to teach. And one of the teachers I wanted to learn from, because he did a monkey style, a student of Dr. Wu, who's out of Columbus, but he was a student of him. And I wanted to learn monkey, and further whatever I got from Dad that brushed on that. And my brother beat him. And so I couldn't go to training without my brother going, "You still going there?" So needless to say, after my brother had beat him, so threw in the towel there. But then we found Sifu. So 37 years later, here I am.
Wow.
So, yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to become a Sifu yourself?
Well, I hope my guidance counselor in the 9th grade hears this. This is kind of funny. In 9th grade, I decided I'm going to be a Sifu. I have dyslexia, and I'm been diagnosed ADD, ADHD. So classroom just wasn't for me, However, when meeting with the guidance counselor, we're talking about, what you're going to do when, you get out of school. What are you looking at? And I said, "Well, I'm going to be a Sifu." She looked me right in the face and said, "You're not Bruce Leroy." You imagine doing that these days, she'd be fired, right?
Right.
But you know what? Success is always the best revenge. So fast forward, my son is playing football, which was he played for a team that was in the same league as the high school, Wayne High School, and then he played for Northmont. And I'm at the game, and I see her there. And probably the best moment I ever had in my life was, I haven't seen you. What are you doing for a living? I got to tell her, I own a martial arts school. So, I don't know if she even remembered telling me that, but
right.
You know what I mean? You could tell me.
In your head, it was the best.
Yeah, it's like,
it's
on you, right?
Yeah.
So, in your face. No, but, So, but yeah, that was really a great moment.
That's awesome. So I was also curious. So at least in the Ming's community, if not like in other martial arts circles, you are known for feats of iron body, iron crotch, iron palm. I've seen you take a full force soccer kick up the middle to the groin, and it was my understanding. I've heard that was something that you didn't intentionally train for, that it was a realization that came to you that you could do this. And to me, this is a extreme example of focusing on the process and not the end result. All the time in class, I'm telling, people want to, people punch good in the air, and then you put a target in front of them, everything flies out the window because they're focused on the target and not what they're doing to execute the technique. So to me, this is an extreme example of you focusing on the Qigong process and not this result. So if this is the case, can you describe what was your intention of your Qigong practice, or is your intention of Qigong practice to lead you to be able to do these things?
My dad stressed meditation at some point, being able to relax. And of course, for him, it's like relax the muscles. Obviously, during the time that he was literally stealing martial arts, because they didn't teach non-Chinese back at that, back then. And, I don't even have a clue as to what origin or where he received his training while over there. But we always still focus on the internal part. I meet Sifu, and I learned various Qigong exercises through Sifu. And then I remember first the Shaolin Wing Chun walks through the door, and this approach was a little more natural approach, if I could say that, as far as the Qigong. And then when when Hong Fai came to the museum, and we then start pointing out the 10 bright points and aligning those during our Qigong. And one day I'm training. If you look at my generation, like your Sifu, Master Roadrock, Master Ryan, then one of my best friends in Kung Fu training, and also my Kung Fu brother, Mike Matthews. We've really trained hard. I mean, and with minimal pads. I don't want to sound like that old man, like back in my day.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
But it was back in our day, you know. So having the boxing background and things like that, I've never had a use for like chest protectors and stuff like that. But training and getting hit, things like that. And Master Roadrock was the one that the day that I discovered that iron crotch, because he kicked me by mistake, and I didn't have a couple, and it didn't hurt.
Right.
So you got to understand the trust that has to be with a Kung Fu brother.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was him, because he's the only one I knew that if I said, go ahead and kick me in the junk as hard as you can, if you know his personality, he would. And so he did. And it didn't hurt. And so then I start testing, later on. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I grab a pan out of and without thinking, grab a pan out of the oven. It's not burning me. No blisters, no nothing. And then being diabetic right now, my wife is here. She has to get on to me, because being diabetic, I'm not going to heal as fast. So tells me I need to be careful. And of course, I'm not in striking distance. And I say, woman, let me live. But, but anyway, and I started noticing that these things, they're not phasing me. However, I do know if I get sick, there is a sensitivity that does come. So I have to make sure I'm of good health before I do any of those demonstrations.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I guess. Yeah.
Got to make sure I'm up to skill in that. And then, I've done striking stones and iron palm and things like that. That really came from my father as far as conditioning and things. So, yeah.
So I guess what I was trying to get at is like, what do you think led you to be able to do that? Just the constant, just working the Qigong exercises and sending the Qi to the surface.
Well, and the formula that we have in the Shaolin Wing Chun, it's more than a formula to make you structurally strong, and it's more than a formula to help you conduct energy into your opponent or receive energy from the opponent. It does develop, that alignment does develop your life energy. And I 100% attribute it to having the previous skill or previous training, and then aligning those points. And those points aligned while doing those training, it's taking things to the next level.
Right on. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's something to be mindful of, like the possibilities that are available through consistency and consistent practice, for sure.
Yes, sir. It's about what? Maximum efficiency. But maximum efficiency of what? Well, it's time, space, and thus energy. What energy? Life energy. And so that's where this maximum efficiency it's at that point I was bought in. I bought in at that. I'm always a constant skeptic. I'm like that. I'm wired to ask myself, when you're talking to me, why are you telling me something? Why are you bringing this up? That's just the way I'm wired. I've been like that since I was a kid. And so having been a skeptic, when, being at the museum, we have so many different lineages, so many different things come through that door. And it's the spokesmen aren't the people like my teacher's teacher learned from the Grandmaster. It is that Grandmaster that comes to us. And so And so, I'm looking at all the different systems. And when you say something works, I have to see the result, I have to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that right there was what locked me into, this formula, let's talk about efficiency. It developed my Qigong to a whole next level.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I couldn't help but think when you were talking about your Kung Fu brother, Master Roadruck, he's the one that I learned the saying, glass head, tofu body,
mm-hmm.
iron bridges, right?
Yeah.
And so when we train, when they spar, they don't wear the chest protectors because it's a tofu body.
Mm-hmm.
I do make them wear headgear because they have jobs.
When we go hard.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this thing called concussions.
Yeah. CTEs.
Yeah.
But when you get into that back in my day syndrome, it's like it's inevitable. Because I do the same thing. I was reminded of that the last episode that we recorded. Like I was telling Alex and the guests that, Master Lambert, like he'd set us out there on sparring night. He would be like, all right, guys, go light, go 80%.
Go light. 80%. Right? Why do I hear him saying that?
Take the edge off.
I hear him saying
go light,
and
go 80%.
I'm thinking I know if Sifu tells me to go 80%, I'm probably going about 100%.
Yeah. So I've modified it, but.
Well, people are built differently these days. I mean, and again, it sounds like the old guy, but I guess it's an honor to get old because you either get old or die, right?
Yeah, but and at the same token, I'm thinking, I think, he's, looking back on it, it's a little bit crazy, but then again, like it helped, it shaped. Yeah. Like I take the abuse so they don't have to in a way, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it. But good stuff. So if you could, I think about your days as a dojo stormer and stuff. If you could go back in time and give the teenage version of yourself some advice, what would that be?
You're not as great as you think you are. And I think of that too, in the sense that if I walked in a lot more situations with an empty cup, I probably would have been able to value, and I probably would have been able to receive a lot more in terms of lessons and things like that. Every experience should be one of learning. Otherwise, it's a wasted experience. And so I went and did a lot of that just to kind of boost my ego. Mm-hmm. We were looking for an instructor, but in a sense, there's that I want to prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's where the problem was.
It wasn't necessarily the way to find that instructor. Yeah.
So, with Dad, he, the way just his brand of how to teach us Kung Fu, it wasn't where, you limit yourself to one range. Mm-hmm. Fight's over when you either seize the person up or you got them in a position where they can't defend themselves. Mm-hmm. So, I look back on that. Some of the guys that we were doing, we were teenagers beating up grown men, but because the limitations of how they train. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, your skill's still about the individual. It doesn't matter what. If the art speaks to you, that's great, but it still comes down to the individual. Mm-hmm. And so, so you're choking out a guy who only does Olympic-style taekwondo. Mm-hmm. That's really not demonstrating much, mm-hmm. because that's not where specialty is. Mm-hmm.
That guy doesn't know what to do when he's getting choked out. Yeah,
he
knows what to do when you're in that long kicking range.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So it's kind of like we were like having that MMA approach, walking into people who are used to practicing in a limited capacity. So
okay. So not as great as you think. You are. I was so arrogant. Like I said, my there's a gravitational pull to my ego. That's how big it was. But that's crazy how Chan karma works. Like if you weren't that guy, you wouldn't have, I guess, gravitated towards Sifu Ming to kind of tame that beast, I guess.
Well, and that's the thing too. Here we go, another in my day. When I started with Sifu, he only had 5 students, period. So when we did sparring class, he was who we sparred sometimes.
Oh, wow.
And me and my brother, we had our own agenda as we're getting beat up one by one with him. We're trying to beat him standing up, try to beat him on the ground, try to beat him in the long range. And he was just toying with us. And no one, we hadn't felt that before. Of course, we used to lie to each other walking home. I hit him. I got him.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. No, you wasn't looking. That's, because, trying to boost the ego, feed that ego, So, but, you know what? And I look at that. I always talk about the marvel of the universe in the sense that, who would have thought all the different instructors that we went through, and even the short stints at other schools, that I would have landed to a person who's going to become the curator of the museum, or even further back, Bruce Lee was like martial art god.
Right.
A person who has taken martial arts from one of the top students of Yip Man. So, and just Sifu being who he is, in a sense, is a crazy coincidence with it's like God is perfect in his,
So
in his way. It's infinite.
From what you were saying, would you say your ego was your biggest opponent?
It still is.
Still is.
Still, worst thing you could ever say is I've conquered my ego.
Because it's
you got work to do,
right?
Yeah, you got some work. You got some work to do, right? Right away, you got some work to do. But it's a struggle, and I think what happens to a student goes through when they start to do work on the ego, they also can go too far and make themselves meek, and they don't get the experiences because of that almost timid,
right? Timidity, yeah.
But the ego has to be balanced. So everything we talk about is balanced, centered. Ego has to be centered. So I have to believe in myself, but it has to be a realistic belief in myself. Reasonable. So
your actions can't be to the detriment of others. You're just trying to restore harmony in your space.
That's a constant struggle. I call it a unicycle on a beach ball. That's it. It's constant going all different directions, and you got to be able to be flexible and move.
Yeah, this is the reason why I personally stay in it is because it's one of the only things that really makes sense. Like it's I don't know. It's kind of like the 12-step program for alcoholics. I think it's our therapy in a sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For me, but I know young Alex, he got to attend your seminar a couple of weeks ago. And was that the first time? No, you did the Flower Fist.
I did the Flower Fist.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, right before COVID at Seafood Rads.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, Master Noaks?
You asked the one that I was going to ask. Okay. But I do have a question. So I came into martial arts a little later in life. I was 27, I think. And a thing that was really helpful for me was being able to equate stuff to other things that I did in the past. Like I'm a musician, a lifetime musician. And with Sifu being a musician, he was really good at being able to equate it to something that I already know. So my question is, do you have some other non-martial arts related activity that you did that you relate this stuff to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's kind of hard for me because being a child martial artist, in fact, I had this conversation. Well, being a child martial artist, especially, it's kind of like at the time you start really putting logic and reason together, and your spirit, and you have it. It's almost impossible to separate that because I do kung fu when I'm doing my other things, my other hobbies. I'm a 2A guy. I'm a gun enthusiast. However, the forms in shooting, as we said before, it's front stance, triangular theory with the arm. So all of that's there in shooting, and then the other things that I do, which is like riding motorcycles, things like that, and so. But I still utilize my kung fu in all of it. So is there really a such thing as an activity for me that's not Kung Fu? There is no line. I mean, I'd be lying if I say there is.
That's a good point. That's why I did air quotes when I said non-martial arts, because it's like when I say like I was a lifetime musician, well before I did Kung Fu, music was my Kung Fu. So it's
and that's it. When they say literally skills developed through hard work over time, any skill that you develop is Kung Fu. Having Shaolin Wing Chun, we just have that beautiful template of time, space, and energy. And, I challenge you to find anything that's not in the scope of time, space, and energy. As a Sifu, I think that's a lesson in itself as well, because, an effective Sifu has to meet the student where they're at. You've got to get to know that student. I don't have where I teach kids this. I teach adults this. You got to look them in the eye, and you got to understand that somebody's son or daughter, they have those experiences that they've compiled to become who they are. And so you have to pay them the respect to get to know who they are. So you know how to talk to them. And so, I can't play an instrument to save my life, but I do see and I can recognize that you have an understanding of rhythm, you have an understanding of tones, you have an understanding of nuance, and then I can teach you with that, and I can talk to you about that, and because that's a universal thing, and it's constantly flowing, changing, and you have to hit the right mark at the right time.
Exactly.
So you can definitely understand that. So having never played an instrument, you got to be able to reach the student.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Awesome. So having experienced one of my workshops with two of them, I go there. If you notice, I don't do hardcore. You must. Give you kind of evolution. I show you in this rawest form, like the demonstration of takedown. I turn my back, do all the wrong things, and just make you say, "How is he not getting taken down?" Then we dive in.
I gotta say that throws and stuff is one thing that has always been really hard for me. Like any of the earth stuff, the clinches and stuff. And after attending that seminar, I feel like I have a much better understanding of
find a brother that will let you use him as a rag doll. And you really make it a lab and just start throwing each other at. Because then when you have that raw experience and then you bring concepts to it, you know it. Now, if you're just trying to imitate a certain technique or whatever, you may have that. Even if you get it, you have that one technique. If you start that raw experience first and then start dropping those concepts in, the value and the gravity of that's when it hits. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have. I did want to check with Mrs. Noakes to see if she needed a fact check or had anything to add. Or
Yes, I am boss. No, everything has been on point, including him being hard-headed and being reminded to put oven mitts on.
In order to be a martial artist, you must be stubborn. That's the only way to get your black belt. You got to be stubborn because you go through hell, you put yourself through hell, and with only one thing in mind, driving forward. So you married it.
I did.
It's going to take a lawyer to get out of this.
So you signed up to the art pretty hard.
I did.
It's 24/7 at this point. Like any thoughts? Any words of wisdom as far as
be gentle.
I don't know. I walked in those doors in 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Wow.
And then 5 years later, we're married, and it's an all-day, 24 hours a day Kung Fu life.
Oh, yeah.
No regrets?
No regrets.
All right.
Well, and the thing about Kung Fu, I think that's what, a lot of people think about, working on the art. I love the fact of the relationships. I have people in my Kung Fu family that I consider closer to a lot of my blood relatives. And, in these relationships, it's the only thing that you can take to the grave is the relationships that you've had, and that's it. And this has just been a blessing. It really has. Just sometimes I still pinch myself. I had a person ask me, "And you go to work tomorrow?" Work? Oh, that is work, isn't it? I guess, right?
Yeah.
Other than the books and things like that, as far as teaching. Yeah.
Yeah. So your true legacy is the impact you made on those that you left behind, right?
Yeah.
So that's powerful stuff, and hopefully we can all use our kung fu to create something that'll last a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sir.
All right. You got anything else, Alex?
No, sir.
All right. Go ahead and take us out.